This is not a sports film because it refuses to elevate sports into an art form. There is an instability that enters Mr. and Mrs. Mahi as though it forgot how to tell the story. Why does Mahima want to marry a loser like Mahendra? Mr. and Mrs. Mahi begins with a cricket match being played between two rival academies for a local tournament. The batsman on the pitch is Mahendra, the star player of Shukla Stars Academy played by Rajkummar Rao. The match's destiny rests on him. The background score teases this tension as the bowler gets closer to the crease. We hear Mahendra's inner voice trying to position his bat by predicting the trajectory of the ball. The bleachers are empty, as are all the seats at the VIP table, because nobody cares. And why would they? It's not just the Jaipur heat, tinged by an ugly orange in the hands of an otherwise painterly cinematographer Anay Om Goswami. It is that Mr. and Mrs. Mahi is a film that cares little for how cricket is celebrated as a mass sport. This is not a sports film because it refuses to elevate sports into an art form, much like director Sharan Sharma's previous film Gunjan Saxena, though set in the midst of Kargil, is not really a war film. The cricket matches that pepper this film are staged against empty bleachers, and the way these scenes are canned, they have neither the balletic poetry of Sarpatta Parambarai's boxing, or the quick-cut adrenaline of Chakde India's hockey, or the breathless agility of Maidan's football. Mr. and Mrs. Mahi has opted instead for the unimaginative changes in frame rate to make motion feel heavier, trying to forcefully build tension that does not exist anywhere else but in the edit. What the film wants to instead luxuriate in are the interpersonal dynamics for which cricket is at best a stage. Mahendra loses not just the opening match but also the chance to play for the state team. He is now forced to join the sports shop of his unsupportive father, played by Kumud Mishra. Mahendra marries Mahima, played by Janhvi Kapoor, in one of the most charmless encounters of love on screen. They're all seated in a living room with their parents exchanging stiff pleasantries. His father rattles off his achievements. Mahendra retreats in both shame and seething, listening to his father's lies. Mahima glares at him. This might be a glare of recognition, that she sees him for who he is. And isn't that the grand demand we make of love, to be seen? But soon we realize that this is not a glare of recognition as much as it is a permanent posture that Janhvi Kapoor gives her character. This wide-eyed, mascara-fringed perspective is how Mahima consumes the world. Staged amidst holy sprays and temple visits, the courtship is dry, the soundscape is lazy and derivative, the kiss is clipped, and the conversations are self-pitying. Why does Mahima want to marry a loser like Mahendra? He's neither good at cricket nor at the shop, neither charming nor handsome. Imandar is the answer she gives her mother. That he might be a loser, but at least he's honest about it. This is a male fantasy that requires turning Mahima into a doe-eyed pushover. Without Janhvi Kapoor's naive face, who will believe that what Mahima wants is not an erotically desirable, economically stable man? Being honest is enough. Men, take notes. When Mahendra sees Mahima on the field flinging sixer after sixer, he decides to coach her instead. She thinks he's doing this out of love, but he knows that latching onto Mahima's rising stardom is his only ticket to not just success but also recognition in the eyes of his father, who calls him a defective piece. It's here that the film begins to feel like it's at war with itself. After Mahima gets selected for the state team, the background score swells joy in her favor. But when she embraces Mahendra tightly in jubilant celebration, what we are sensitive to is Mahendra's scheming. What we are made to feel chafes against the film's forceful tone. There is an instability that enters Mr. and Mrs. Mahi as though it forgot how to tell the story. It's only when Mahendra's intentions become clear to Mahima that the film's score aligns with the narrative and its storytelling becomes coherent even as it continues its joyless 2-hour 20-minute charade. Joyless because neither courtship nor sport, neither love nor adrenaline sticks to the surface of this film. To the credit of Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, however, Mahendra is one of the most unlikable men written into Hindi cinema. And this is not just because he's so thoroughly ordinary at best, at cricket, at bookkeeping, at being a son, a husband, but because despite this mediocrity, he still demands fame and attention. The rub is that his is an unappealing, uninteresting hideousness, almost undeserving of cinema. Besides, it's a brashness that needed not a schoolboy sincere performance, but a charismatic, complicated one, which is not what Rajkummar Rao brings to the role, slobbering instead in smiles that feel both true and false. After a point, when he rips his face in teeth year to year, you do not know whether the smile comes from feeling or fiction. His character registers as a villain who needs penitence, not a hero who needs to recognize himself. We all know what happens to films that don't take the time and patience to craft an interesting villain.